scrimmage. If I remember correctly, Georgetown and then Duke. Is your thought when you pick these teams that you scrimmage, because they're always top line, teams you usually don't play during the regular season, to get a look at the team? And also, what did you see about Duke when you saw that really impressed you?
Well, the first question, we just try to scrimmage teams that make sense. Certainly, playing really good teams, I think it just helps you. You know that they'll present some problems, whether it's, the talent they have, the coaching, the schemes, whatever. And so you feel like the more challenging the scrimmage is, the more you'll learn about your team. You want to see your kids against, better players, just to kind of see how maybe the young guys are they ready? Are they not ready? Things of that nature. But I thought those two scrimmages were great. Don't really play them in case we could play them down the road. Really don't think of it that way. But just feel like Georgetown makes a lot of sense. We're pretty close with that staff for a variety of reasons. It's local, so it makes sense. I like to do one away scrimmage, either fall or in the spring, where we do an overnight. That was Cornell in the fall. We went up there and scrimmaged on a Saturday night. Again, I feel like another really good team, just to kind of, get us prepared. And we had to wait till football was done. So it ended up being like a 7:00 scrimmage, which, to be honest, I thought was great experience for our guys. We had to travel and we had to sit around all day. We had to manage the day, and our Syracuse game, as fate would have it, ended up becoming like a 7:00 scrimmage. So it just kind of gave us a dry run of, what we would have to prepare for. And again, just two really good teams. We scrimmaged St. Joe's in the fall. We scrimmaged Harvard in the fall, our alum. So we really got a lot of good scrimmage work in. But you kind of walked away from Duke, kind of knowing that they had a lot of guys coming back, and they brought some really good fifth years in, like a Zawada. Walked away feeling like we were a little ahead of them. We had been practicing longer. We started earlier. I think they had only practiced 4 days, so they didn't have a lot in. There's not a lot that you can do, and you're not in game shape in 4 days. I think we have been going 2.5 weeks. So, in a way, like, it was good to prepare and have a against somebody else, but we were way ahead in a lot of other, like, it's face-offs or specialties or subbing and things like that. So the scrimmages, we don't really do a lot. And I think Duke is kind of the same way. Like, they're not game planning. We're not game planning. So you don't really take a lot away from that day in terms of, like, what if we actually played, what it would be like. Because preparing this week is so much different, right? You're going to break down film and have a better sense of who's running with who. And at that point in the year, we're so focused on ourselves that, it's just kind of like you roll the ball out and play for the most part. But I think obviously we started, I think a little bit earlier than them. And then I think our first game was earlier. So, again, we were a little ahead of them. We were a little ahead of Georgetown too. But really felt like they were really good. I know the guys that they have in the roster, they recruited really well. We think a lot of the Duke staff, Coach Dino, Jesse obviously played in the World Games for Coach Dino, so he's close with them. And, we think a lot of that staff, we don't play. So a lot of times we're, talking to each other about maybe common teams, things like that. So think the world of those guys. So that would really be my takeaway.
Thanks, Coach.
John, can I ask you a question about something you referenced on Saturday night after the game? You talked about the return of Eric, Logan, and Joshua, and how they've helped the team. I was wondering if you could expand on just what they've done, coming back a year later from their injuries. And then the second part is, I was wondering, Joshua hasn't really played that much. What has been his value to the team?
Yeah, great questions. The things that I worry most about when kids get hurt, I feel like, especially with those ACLs or season-ending injuries, you we have great doctors here, and our trainers are phenomenal. I really worry about the mental side. And it's kind of the isolation piece where, it's one thing to play and they want to play and compete. We know injuries happen, but when they're not playing and then they have the injury and they're not with the team and they're not in that routine, they have to like get to surgery. And so they have to go do that. And then they're not at practice. They have to come in the training room and they're doing all of that PT and a lot of this by themselves. And, they're staring down, I can't really run for 6 months. So, they're crutching around and they have to get help to go to class. And, they have a tough time getting up and down stairs and sleeping. And, and then, we start getting, we scrimmage and like, they can't play and they're just standing there. They kind of have to watch the games and they can't really help the way they want to help. And all those kids have done a lot for us. So, you want to make sure they're as connected as possible. Our kids do a really good job of, staying connected. Those guys all live together. So I think those guys realize the non-hurt guys know that they need to make sure they're looking out for those guys. Because, your mind does play tricks with you. Hey, am I going to come back the same? When am I going to come back? Like, can I do the things I used to do? So I think having those guys come back, there's a lot of value to all three of those guys being back this year. The experience that they bring, all three guys have logged a lot of miles. Eric was essentially a 2-year starter. He's on the second midfield and then played attack at sophomore year. Logan obviously has played a ton. And Josh was in our 4-man rotation in 2021 and was huge for us that year. Especially we lost Higgins late in the year. So Josh was a huge part of our short stick rotation. Losing him in 22 hurt. Bubba moving down there certainly, kind of overshadowed that loss a little bit, only because, people made a lot of, that, which, a lot of that was Bubba just being an unselfish guy. The thing that hurts with Josh is, he's a guy that has grown up so much here. He has become such a good leader in the locker room. And so to see him lose 2 straight years is heartbreaking. I can still remember when he went down the second time. I know exactly when it happened, where it happened, how it happened. I can remember, what he yelled as he went down. It'll stay with me forever. You just kind of knew it was non-contact. And I think when you tear your ACL, if you do one, there's a sense that you have a strong idea if you do it again. And so that was gut-wrenching, knowing he really was, in his last year, you thought. And so would he come back for another year? We were excited that he did. And unfortunately, Josh hasn't come back at the level we would have liked. He's not playing as well as he had. And it's not for lack of trying. He works his butt off. He cares so much. We kind of expected him to play, to be honest. We were like, okay, he's going to come back. And maybe it'll take a couple weeks. And then when he came back, there was a little more that we needed to do. He wasn't with us with the fall, so he had a job and had to do a lot of the PT on his own. And we kind of felt like there were some more things he needed to do to get that thing stable and safe. And so that set him back. And then we just kind of thought eventually he'd play his way back on the field. And surprisingly, I think to him and to us, it just hasn't really happened. We've used him in the clearing game. We tried to find other roles. We really value Josh's leadership. He's been tremendous with the younger guys on the field, off the field, academics, just managing life here. He is a great leader. He's a guy that, you just kind of wish that the story was different, because you want that ending, that we see in the movies where, you go through adversity, but you come back stronger. But he's still done so much for us. I'm glad he came back. Obviously, we all wanted him to play more. He wanted to play more, but he's still the younger guys really appreciate how much he looks after those guys. And this year will serve him well. His leadership skills, what he's done, he's going to transition into the real world and just do a great job.
Thank you, John.
Coach, when you're facing kind of a talent like Brennan O'Neill, is defensively the game plan kind of he's going to get his number of goals no matter what? You have to limit the others, or maybe is it more so really trying to limit his amount of goals?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily one or the other. I do think, he's gonna have an impact. And you kind of, to your point, like if you give them too much attention, the other guys, they are certainly capable of making you pay. But if you don't do a good job and you don't practice kind of some of the tendencies and some of the things they do, like he could go off. So I think there's a balance there of like, you got to know, kind of some of the patterns, some of the schemes and things like that. And be knowing that, listen, he is capable. He's going to get shots and there's a good chance like he's going to have some success. I think there's a balance of not doing too much that you put so much emphasis on him, those other guys tear you up. And also like, you got to make sure that you respect him enough that he doesn't light you up. So I think it's somewhere middle. Played a lot of really good players this year, and I think it's always a collective effort with our team. Like six out there that they're all super dangerous. Dyke Williams is really another strong fifth-year guy who was a draft pick. Zawada was the all-time leading scorer at Michigan. Now that's just the attack. And then you start bringing guys like McAdory, who's the number one guy in his class. You can keep going down the list. Like they're all really, really good. So you have to respect them all. You have to play good team defense. You got to be on the same page because you focus too much on any of those guys. The other guys are going to make you pay. So they do such a good job of including everybody and playing schemes where you can't just take one guy out. You just can't. We just got to play our defense, certainly understand kind of some of the strengths of each guys, and realize like it's going to be a team effort. We've got to play, really good on-ball defense. We've got to play the pick game well. We've got to play well off the ball. We've got to first-time ground balls to not give them second chances. We've got to clear well and not give them second chances. We've got to get back in transition to not give them unsettled opportunities. So it's certainly going to be everybody involved here, including our offense. But that's kind of the cool thing about lacrosse is it's really not just offense and defense. Your offense can help your defense by, getting back and not giving them 4-on-3 fast breaks and, not having silly turnovers where they're going to get breaks and things like that.
Coach, Bruce and I were talking the other night about your phenomenal record in the NCAA tournament, never mind the regular season. And listening to you talk about how you schedule scrimmages seems to point to having the team ready for an NCAA run. What do you attribute the fact that you do so well in the tournament and that your teams seem to be tournament ready for any situation?
I think the schedule certainly helps. We do play a really tough schedule, and we do focus on just trying to get better every week. I know it sounds like a coach's cliche, but we really do want to challenge the guys. We never stop teaching. We never stop coaching. We feel like each week, even this week, there's ways to get better, whether it's, guys staying after practice to shoot, stick work, fundamentals, because you do want to put your best foot forward. I do think playing a good schedule, you might get knocked around. You might lose some. You might have some hiccups, which certainly we've had. But through that, you hope you get better. I think the record is probably, the biggest byproduct is having really good players and great coaches. We've had such good staffs here and so many good players. Like, a coach can only do so much. You do what you can to prepare, but without great players and great coaches, you're not going very far. So Having great guys like Kevin Warren and Bobby Benson, go through, obviously guys like Matt Rambo and Logan and Jared and all those other guys, and a lot of guys that maybe you don't know about that were on the scout team. We've had a lot of guys just really work their butt off and give us a chance. So that's what I would attribute it most to. So many of those things. Sometimes it takes a little luck. Sometimes the luck can work against you. Sometimes you don't get that call or that bounce, and you just got to keep moving on.
Hey, John, I've got two questions for you. I'll ask the first and wait for you, and then I'll ask a follow up. Kind of building off of Brandon's earlier question about Duke. If we go back to the Ron Zook, Jimmys and Joes versus X's and O's, right? Like we know Duke's got a lot of really, really good players, but what do they do schematically that makes them difficult?
Yeah, it's like preparing for the world team, So, and one of the guys was the MVP of the World Games. They do a really good job with like guys. They have very smart players as much as they're skilled and they're athletic. Like they're smart. Like they share the ball really well. They space well. They play well in the 2-man game. Off ball, guys are flashing the cuts. Dyson Williams does such a good job, like of setting picks for O'Neal. And so if you don't do a good job on that pick, he's going to get leverage. If you overplay it, he'll slip it and they'll throw it to him. Guys will break you down, and then a guy like Williams will cut off ball. Even O'Neal's good off ball. Zawada's good off ball. And then you bring in dynamic middies that, they can set really good picks. They can dodge you. They can stretch you from the outside. They can hit runners. If you're late on slides, they're two-handed. And again, if you help too much, they find the open guys. So Matt Danowski does a great job with their offense. They run good schemes to fit the pieces that they have. They space well. They're unselfish. Watching the game last week and just hearing some of the comments, after they talked about really dodging hard and being aggressive and playing angry almost. And meaning they're going to play at a really fast tempo with really good players. And if you're slinging that ball around and the guys are moving fast, it does put a ton of pressure on your defense. And if you overcommit or you stretch out too far, they'll kind of give you a hitch and you overcommit yourself. They'll do a good job at the point of attack where they'll just dodge you real quick, and all of a sudden you're going one way and you're not disciplined on your breakdowns and your approaches, and now they've beaten you, and now you got to slide again, and then you got to slide again. So your rotations have to be on point. You got to communicate really well, because you can't just line up and say, all right, win your matchup. Like they're going to win matchups. They're going to do it through sheer just breaking you down on one-on-one. Sometimes it's 2-on-2s. Sometimes it's off ball. So you got to be good everywhere. And they're going to put pressure on you the whole time. They'll come down from defense to offense. They'll dodge early offense. So there's really no times where they're letting you relax. So you've got to be on point for 80 seconds or more if they get a reset. So again, we've talked about just digging in and staying focused and being ready to play long possessions. Luckily, we played against some teams that, would kind of work you down, and they would work for a good shot. Maybe not as some of them as talented as Duke, because they're about as talented as you're going to get. But they forced you to play long possessions and be on point. They just do it with more good players and sometimes at a faster clip.
So the second question, and you mentioned pace, and so to an observer like me and maybe some of the other people on the Zoom here, and I think statistically, looking at the post game breakdown from Princeton, you all were noticeably faster. So it looked like it to the eye, but it also looked like it came out that way statistically, and how early you all were shooting. It might have been the fastest game you all played of the year. it looked like to me at least, you guys were playing like you had nothing to lose on offense and you were playing fast. It was my perception off? Am I reading into it? Or was this, just the way the game flowed for you?
No, I think even if you just go back a week, I wouldn't disagree, Tony. If you go back the week before, I just felt like we looked so slow, and contrasting that to last week, much faster. And so, when you have those games where things don't go well, you talk as a staff and then you talk to your kids. And I felt like we were super slow. I felt like we were sluggish. I felt like we were tired. So then you have conversation with your kids and you talk to them, and then you kind of look at the way you're practicing. What are we doing in practice? Did we do too much? Did we feel like the way we handled the trip to Ohio, did we not handle that right? That day, should we, have done anything differently? It is a long day. You're playing the late game. We look sluggish and slow. So we had another late game. So it was like, all right, well, let's take a look and let's see if we've learned anything. And also in terms of when we took the field, how we took the field, like on offense, once we got it, all right, making a point of emphasis to let's try to play faster. Let's play at a faster pace and let's practice that way. And make it an emphasis. And it's not like we haven't emphasized it before. But I did feel like we were fresher. I think we did tweak some things during the week. I did feel like some of the guys felt better. So in a way, we kind of looked and said, all right, what did we do and what can we do differently? And that's where having really dedicated kids and kids that you trust and value and they're committed, you can ask them those questions and trust their feedback. They want to win. And then, I think the guys just went in and, we were kind of like, listen, we got to do a better job of just playing and blocking out the noise and just don't worry about anything else. Let's just be singularly focused on just playing together, playing fast, be aggressive, and have clear minds. And I think sometimes you get into a game, guys are overthinking things, and maybe it's, it's not as clear as it should have been, in terms of what we wanted to do, things of that nature. So we really do look at everything after every game, whether we win or lose, and either try to build on the good things, and also clean up the things that maybe we didn't do well. So we try to make that a point of emphasis, just because the season is a journey. Week to week, their environment changes. Sometimes they have a lot of exams. Sometimes the kids are dinged up, some of them. Sometimes there's a lot going on. So you got to manage it. For us this week, we're in the middle of exams. So we have to be sensitive to the kids' time, and make sure that we get them in and out. We got to be efficient and respectful that they have a lot of work to do, but we still got to get our prep in. So we really try to make sure that we don't keep them here longer than they have to be, because the more time we give them, the more they can get stuff done, the more sleep and things like that they can get.
Anyone else? All good.
Good luck, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Coach, good luck, buddy.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.